Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tasia, but you can also call me Tay, and welcome in. I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome back to Metropolis. If you guys are newer to the channel or recent subscribers, you may or may not be familiar with this island, but this is my superhero comic book inspired island. And honestly, this is one of my pride and joy islands, I'm not gonna lie, because it's just been so much work and I put in so much effort into this. It is full-blown Citycore. I've been working on this for so long. I actually started this in March of 2024, so it has been over a year since I began this theme, and it seriously has been a journey. I abandoned it for quite a while because I was away from the channel for a period of time, and that was the island, or I guess this is the island that I was working on right before my break from the channel. But we are back on the island. I'm going to be finishing it off today and in the next video that I will be posting. I decided to make this two different parts because it took me quite some time to finish off the rest of the island, and it honestly would be a lot of footage, and I don't know if I can keep it all in one video, so we're doing two different parts. In the second portion of today's video, I am going to be doing some decorating. We're going to be building the superhero headquarters, which I'm so excited to show you guys. I love how it turned out. But the first half of today's video is actually going to be me explaining what I've been up to on the island since I last showed it on the channel, kind of reintroducing the theme. And also I have done a few little builds during my time away from the channel, so I'll also be showing you those as well. But if you're more so interested in the decorating portion, which completely understand, I will go ahead and put that timestamp on the screen right now. But if you'd like to stick around, hear the whole story of Metropolis, see what changes I've made, and the newer builds that we've done, feel free to keep on watching. So with that intro out of the way, let's go ahead and get into today's video. So, as I said, Metropolis is a superhero themed island, and it only was fitting that I did Citycore for this island. And let me tell you guys, Citycore is not easy to do at all. So props to anyone who has ever made a full-blown Citycore island. This is my very first one that's all Citycore. I have done an island in the past that was like half natural and half city, and that was my first attempt ever at making anything city-like. But this whole island is dedicated to buildings and skyscrapers and landscapes and cityscapes, like so many different fun things, but it has been a really big task to take on. Because Citycore is so geometric, I felt like I needed to think multiple steps in advance in order to fit the builds I wanted to make on this island, and I'm really trying to make my city feel very connected and flow, and I'm also trying to fit in different builds that tie into superheroes. I was heavily inspired by different superhero movies, comics, TV shows, stuff like Avengers or just Marvel films in general, DC, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Powerpuff Girls, Incredibles, literally any kind of superhero crime fighting thing or story I pulled inspiration from, and I kind of made my own little universe of Animal Crossing and this superhero city. Metropolis is kind of named after Metropolis from Superman, and there are a lot of different references from Superman that I've tied into this island. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like 2025 was the summer of superheroes, so I feel like it's kind of like fitting and almost a full circle moment for me to finish this year, because I just felt all the superhero vibes from this summer. I do have quite a few fun backstories for this island as well that I've been developing, and I'll kind of go into more detail later in this video, but also just in my island tour. It's just been so much fun to create this whole storyline and just have all of my villagers on this island, and I've been having a lot of fun with all the builds as well. But with that said, in between the time of me posting the last video on Metropolis and me getting back into the groove of the island, I was really struggling, like very much struggling. I had such a creative block. I just could not continue building on the island. I had a few ideas that I really wanted to do and builds that I was loving, but I realized what really came down to the source of the problem was the island layout. Island layout is honestly so important to me, and I really like to create a flow around the island and make it feel like you can just go in a whole circle without missing anything. And I just had this one sunken area behind resident services that really just took up a lot of space, but also didn't include a lot of builds. I wanted to do different things that I just didn't have space for. So I realized that I needed to go back and tear so much down, and I needed to just start with a clean slate. I needed something new to build on and a clean area to decorate. So that is something that I really had to figure out in between that time. But also, in between me struggling with that area, I also created new builds and ideas that was so much fun, which I am going to show you right now. On top of the grungy building, I did finally figure out what I was going to do from this viewpoint, and I decided to do robots taking over the city, like it's a little robot army. And there is a backstory to this, which we are going to get into in a few minutes for this other build that I did on the island. But oh my goodness, this build was so much fun, but also a really big headache. It took me so long to figure out how to make these buildings properly, and I do really want to shout out Noot Horizons. I love her videos. She is working on this Tokyo 3 themed island, and she posted a video about her making this one entrance build where she did buildings very similar to this. So I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly the kind of aesthetic I'm going for Metropolis. So I was heavily inspired by her buildings. I will go ahead and link Nat down below. She's a really great creator. Love her videos. And yeah, so I saw her video and that heavily inspired these buildings here. And I just love how it turned out. It was so much fun, but took so much time to do because I'm trying to make this like very three-dimensional. The second build that I did during this time was connected to the sunken pipe that I put in quite a while ago in a previous video, which I will also go ahead and link up above. And I did ask you guys to leave your predictions down in the comments as to where this pipe was going to lead, and some of you did guess correctly. This pipe actually leads to our villain's lair on the island. And our villain for the island is actually Gaston, who one of my friends, Ray, graciously gifted to me. I was able to acquire him from her. So shout out to Happy Place ACNH. She makes amazing content on Instagram, so definitely go check her out. I will also link her down below. But yes, Gaston is officially on the island and he's representing our villain, and his lair is meant to be underground. So I wanted to create this illusion where it's like you're entering down into the sewers of the city, and there's like this green slime river going through there. It's all dark and eerie. And it was really fun to put this together. I did go through different variations of this build, but Gaston is actually the one behind the robots taking over the city. He has a full functioning robot factory down in his lair where he's putting together these robots to take over the city so he can rule. So that's kind of like the backstory to that. That's what he's plotting. I wanted to create this little overlook that oversees the whole robot factory, so that's why the sewage little river is on the second tier of terraforming, and I do have a few clips of me just building out this area. I didn't have my Switch set up to record anything, so these were just like 30-second clips that I had, but you kind of see my general process as to how I put some of this together, so I did wanted to throw that in as well. But those were the two builds that I did during my time away and in between when I actually started picking up the island again and starting to make bigger builds. So those were the major updates that I had and some of the builds that I did during that time, but now we are going to dive into the decorating, so let's get started. So we are going to start off building in this section over here. This little area is kind of the meeting point between the robot takeover area as well as the big monster statue in downtown Metropolis. And I guess you could say we're not so much building, but more so modifying this area. This is a small transition way between the two sections, and you can probably tell that I did do quite a lot of path laying and building here. I made this little bridge and a long highway, which I honestly loved. It's just, it didn't work with the island flow. It was right behind my city skyline, so it was very hard to see the build as you were running down, and then just the alleyway that I was making behind the cityscape just didn't really work. It really was not the best view. So I decided to visit Tom Nook in order to tear down those two stone staircases, and we're just going to start fresh. I knew I wanted to tear down pretty much this entire area so I could rebuild, and I thought it'd be better if I really make this section all on the second tier so that you don't have all these items blocking your view as you're running across here. So that means we're going to have to take down all of these items, which took forever, kick up all of the pathing as well, and just re-terraform this whole section. Which, as I said before, was honestly super necessary in order for me to continue building on this island, because this whole section was seriously a problem child of my island. It just didn't work no matter how many times I tried to move items around, and I just had to accept that this bridge was just not gonna work right here. But I did manage to incorporate this similar concept later on the island, just in a different location. So pretty much from this metal incline, I also decided I was going to extend out the terraforming all the way to this cliff as well. So this red incline is not going to stay here. I'm actually going to have a land bridge extend all the way to that back cliff as well, because I absolutely loved the bridge with the blue fences. I thought it looked really cool and added a really fun pop of color, which is something else that I'm trying to keep on this island. I want it to feel very comic book like and bring in those bright, fun superhero colors, which for my island are red, blue, and sometimes a little bit of yellow, which I honestly thought I'd be able to incorporate a few more pops of those colors, but I did find these one simple panel designs that were red and blue that matched, and I think it really gives it that cartoony look. So I love those windows, and I started incorporating those a lot more, as you can see here around the island. And I think that really pulled the theme together. So I managed to build this, but the footage got corrupted from when I built this little building, so I'm so sorry I couldn't include that, but I did have a few clips of the angles of it here. And this is kind of how the terraforming turned out, as well as the road. The road does change once again. I had this whole layout, as you can see, and I was planning on putting some houses here, but this does change up a lot more because we are at the very back of the island at this point, and I still had so many ideas that I wanted to fit on the island, so I really had to like pick my battles for this, truly. And not everything was going to work exactly where I wanted it to. So this was like an ongoing back and forth of me building out this island over the course of the past few months. Like since I started reposting on the channel, I've been working on this island, and at the time I'm recording this voiceover, it is completely done, but that was like an extra 5 months of me working on this theme. So it was a long process. Like I don't want to downplay that at all, but I couldn't be happier honestly with how it turned out. Would I give Citycore another try? Possibly. I'm pretty sure there is a theme that I really want to do that's pretty Citycore heavy, but it has a little bit of a different twist to it. So we'll see if that ends up coming together, but for now, Metropolis has been a lot of work. But we're moving on to the next section. Over here is actually where I built my little transition area from resident services, and this was once again another area that was giving me a lot of trouble. I didn't like how off-center the incline was from resident services, especially since this is where I wanted to put the superhero headquarters, and I realized that I had to tear this area down as well. It just simply would not work with my plans. I really loved this transition. I had a whole video on this area as well, but sadly it just had to go because, as you could probably tell, I haven't put down my villager houses anywhere so far in my finished areas on the island. They're all kind of in this bottom section that's right in front of resident services. And I have mentioned this previously in a past video that I do really care about what it looks like when you wake up from the dream when visiting my islands. And if I put a bunch of villager houses up there in the front, you wouldn't really get that view quite well. Everything would just be blocked. So in terms of island flow, this area just had to go. And in order to do that, it was finally time that I cleared out all of my villager houses from this area. I just needed to have a completely blank slate so that I could recreate the shape of this superhero headquarters. And it did take me quite a lot of time to do this, but I decided to start with Big Tops. He was the first house in the way, so I just decided to go from left to right and just clear and move all these houses. Also, I could just move them back into this area. But it was honestly so worth it. I end up using quite a lot of inclines in this area as well, which you'll see in a few minutes, but I did have to move Big Top's house onto the beach, and pretty much all the other houses I moved elsewhere on the island. And then I also removed that steel incline because it just was not going to work there. So after clearing out a lot of the cliffs and then having quite a few of my villagers get in the way while I'm trying to clear the area, I finally managed to clear the entire bottom right section of this island. And I also want to show you guys the map because I also really figured out the rest of the island terraforming. I went back into the city area as well and kind of fixed up that section, which we're going to build that in the next video and decorate that whole area. So I'm just really happy with the way that it is progressing. And finally, after 15 minutes into this video, we are finally going to be decorating the superhero headquarters. This is the landscaping that I came up with, and I wanted to create this like sunken effect. So I mapped out where I want to have some inclines as well as all the houses. And one of my favorite parts about this area is probably the fact that this extension of my train track leads straight into my entrance, so it's kind of like a little nod to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or just any other fun thing where the headquarters or something is underground in the sewer kind of area. That's kind of what I was inspired by. So I love that that's how you are introduced to the island. The second you wake up, you are part of the superhero team, and I just love that concept. And as I was showing you guys the area, I noticed Pecan was trying to get the inside scoop between these two superheroes right here, which honestly is the perfect segue into discussing each villager and why I chose them, their backstory for the island, because I have kind of created this whole storyline in my head for this theme, and it's been super fun. And I am about to start placing down a bunch of pathing in this area, so I think it's kind of the perfect time to discuss my theme overall. So as I said, Metropolis is kind of like set in the Animal Crossing universe. It is a big bustling city, and it is protected by our superhero team, which is Mira, Agent S, Static, Big Top, Ione, and Kit Kat. So those are the 6 heroes on the island. And I also consider myself to be one of the superheroes on the island. I honestly have given myself the same storyline as Superman, where by day I'm like a reporter, and by night or just whenever there's crime in the city, I am a superhero. And I like to envision myself as like the team leader, but when I'm not there and I'm like in reporter mode, I would say either Mira or Kit Kat are our team leader. So I just thought that was really fun. And I also was considering what each villager's superpowers would be, and I honestly based this on their look and character design. So I guess starting with Mira is the only one with like a mask and a cape, so I feel like she's very different from the rest of them, and there isn't really anything particular that stood out to me in her design that would signify something like cosmic or anything, so I decided to just say that Mira has the power of flight. She can fly. She's the only one on the superhero team that can fly. I feel like that makes sense for her cape. And I actually do decorate all of my villagers' houses. All of the interiors are decorated, and they are fit to match each superhero's powers. So Mira definitely has like a vibrant and fun interior for her house. I'm not going to show that to you guys quite yet. You do have to wait for the tour to see all of those. But I really had a lot of fun and got pretty creative with each interior. Next up is Agent S, and for Agent S, I just gave her the power of speed. She's very speedy, kind of like Dash from Incredibles. Also her amiibo and just like images I've seen of her as a character, she's in like a running position, and so I'm pretty sure that's what the designers intended her to be. So Agent S has enhanced speed. And then next up is Static. I feel like this one's a little bit obvious. Static has electricity powers. He can harness electricity, probably zap it from his hands. I just thought that was very obvious and fitting for him. Next up is Big Top, and again, maybe an obvious one, but I think Big Top has the power of strength. He's super strong, can lift a bunch of things, buildings, trains, cars, whatever. He is extra strong. And then there's Ione, which I feel like I could have gone multiple different directions for Ione, but I like to envision her as the one that has more cosmic, unrealistic kind of powers. So she has the power of levitation, and she can just harness and lift things with her mind and just like pull things towards or away from herself. I guess kind of similar to Wanda Maximoff. She has more magical type of powers. And then our last hero is Kit Kat, and for Kit Kat, It was kind of hard to come up with something, to be honest, that fit his character, but I just decided he's very good at fighting. Because he's a cat, I felt like that made sense. He has really great agility, and maybe he's also very fast, but he's just really light on his feet. He's very good at self-defense, and I don't know. That's just pretty much what I could come up with for Kid Cat. So he has a lot of like crime fighting themes in his interior, which was also really fun to do. But yeah, that is our superhero team, and I honestly don't know what my power is. I just say I'm part of the team. Let me know in the comments what my superpower should be. And then we do have a few villagers on the island who are not superheroes. I did already discuss Gaston, our villain on the island, but he does have a little bit more of a backstory than what I mentioned already. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Gaston and Mira have very similar character designs, specifically their color and the colors of their ears. And I just thought it kind of made sense and would be really fun and like a twist if they were related. So maybe Gaston is Mira's father and they are either estranged or they just no longer speak to one another, or maybe Mira isn't aware that he is the true villain behind the crime going on in Metropolis. But deep down, Gaston still really misses his daughter. And I put a framed photo of Mira on his desk in his house interior because I thought that'd be a really fun Easter egg to put in his house and kind of make that connection. But let me know what you guys think their full backstory should be. But I definitely thought it'd be cool to have Mira be Gaston's daughter. And it's just really funny that one is a superhero and one is a supervillain. So that is more of Gaston's backstory as well. And also, speaking of Mira, we actually are going to start placing our villager houses in now. I am going to continue talking about the backstories, but I did want to mention that and kind of bring us back to the build. I did finish all the pathing, but Mira's house is the first one I decided to place, and we're just going to continue doing that and finally start putting down some items as well and kind of make this whole area feel a little closed in. I also started putting in all the inclines so all of our villagers can wander around, and they will be able to explore the rest of the island because I do have that entrance way back to my actual entrance through the train tracks. But yes, I did want to explain that, and then I'm also adding in all these castle walls to kind of surround the area and make it feel more like a cave, which is mainly why I went with the darker colored walls. But back to the villagers' backstories and storylines. There are a few more other villagers on the island. Next up we have Petri or Petri. Honestly, I say her name differently depending on the video. I don't really know how it's actually meant to be pronounced. I'm pretty sure it's Petri, like a petri dish in science. Anyways, Petri is our scientist on the island, but she also kind of plays the role of like Edna Mode from Incredibles, and she designs and fixes and alters our superheroes' suits and costumes. And she also creates and invents the different gadgets our heroes might use during their battles in Metropolis. So that is her role, and her house actually ends up being in the superhero headquarters. It honestly worked out perfectly because I had one other house left on the island that I need to fit somewhere, and since she's part of the team, it just makes sense to have her amongst all the other superhero houses. So it really worked out, and I was able to make her her own little DIY workshop area in the headquarters, and her house interior is also very fitting for her role on the superhero team. And our last two villagers on the island are Marlowe and Pecan, and they represent just everyday citizens in Metropolis. However, Marlowe is the mayor and Pecan is a news reporter. So honestly, it was really funny and fitting for her to be eavesdropping on Agent S and Kit Kat's conversation earlier because she's got to get the inside scoop and she's always on the lookout for a good interview. So I just found that very amusing earlier in the video while I was decorating. But yeah, those are pretty much all of our villagers on the island. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, or let me know if you have any other suggestions to add to their storylines. I'd love to read them. Or if you think a certain villager should have a different superpower, let me know down below. It honestly is kind of set in stone because the island is done, but I'd love to read all of your guys' thoughts and theories and storylines for these characters. But I think it is officially time that we should get back into talking about the build here, because I have made quite a bit of progress and we're starting to get into the more exciting parts about this build. So as you can see, I did incorporate a lot of the walls, and I'm also using quite a bit of frozen furniture as well. I thought that'd be a really fun touch. I've only really incorporated this on a Halloween island, but these are really great items to use if you want to create like a glowing effect in a build, and I thought the blue just really fit with the theme. And I'm also using a lot of like metal type codes and materials and items, and I went with more of blacks and blues. I thought that was a really good contrast from the red that was in Gaston's area, and I'm just really happy with how this came together. Honestly, I don't really know what other way I would do this. It turned out a lot bigger than I thought it would from my very initial vision. And I'm really happy that I was able to incorporate a lot of my original ideas into this and just expand and make it better. So that's what I mean by like tearing down an area and restarting really opens up a lot of opportunities for newer builds and things. And here I decided to throw in a lot of the space pods. I wanted to make this long hallway of the space pods. It just makes this whole area feel a lot more grand and scientific and futuristic, I guess. And it's kind of like a wow moment from the very first moment you wake up from the dream. So I thought that was just really fitting for this area. And we're going to also include our other two inclines going upwards on either side. So this is a very symmetrical area. And I also decided to use the iron fencing, specifically customized in the blue color. It's more of like a teal color, but I thought that would be a really good highlight to use and kind of border off this area. I don't know, I was kind of channeling things from like Star Wars, I guess, on like the Death Star where you have like these long hallways and it's kind of restricted. This looks nothing like the Death Star, but I don't know why I made that reference. I just was trying to channel a bunch of different scientific sci-fi aspects of movies and things I've seen. So yeah, just pulling a lot of inspiration from movies, shows, cartoons, literally anything I feel like you can get inspiration from. So that's what I was working on here, and I love the way it looks. And then I also decided to come up on the second level here. I wanted to continue using the blue fencing. I thought it was like a nice little border, and it kind of protects you, you know, from like falling off the edge of this second level of the headquarters. And I also was just extending some of the pathing as well. I just think it looks so cool. And then also I wanted to incorporate a lot more glowing items. So I decided to place down these little display stands and then put some cube lights on top of them. It doesn't really mean anything or even really make sense, but it just looks really cool. So I just thought that'd be like something fun to add into the structure. I feel like it's something you might see in a superhero area. It just looks very futuristic, and it was a really nice thing to border off the fencing as well. And here's how everything looks together. I love the way it looks, and I also time traveled so I could see the incline here and also put in all of the other villager houses and all the inclines. I cannot wait for you guys to see. Here's how it looks, and just like the villagers' houses look incredible. I am so excited and happy about it. There are a few that I do need to customize, but I'm loving the look of Agent S, Big Top, and Kit Kat's houses, as well as Static's. I also didn't really change anything with Static's, but I love the iron kind of style of their house exterior, so I decided to change Ione and Mira's house to kind of match that style. And here are some angled views of the build. I don't know, it just makes me so giddy. I'm honestly super pleased. This is probably the most fun and different villager neighborhood I've ever done, because this is technically a villager neighborhood. So maybe this is inspiring for you if you are working on an island and you want to do something different with your villager houses. Maybe this could be something new to try on your island. And then also up here is an area that I needed to fix, because before I used to have an incline connecting down to this area, but because I want the headquarters to be blocked off and kind of secluded and hidden in a way, I decided to make this little building side out of simple panels, and I also added a bench. This is honestly just something that I pulled from a previous island I did, my Halloween island. It's a really great way to just randomly end a road, and you also still have a really cool view of the skyline. But even so, I still needed to work on this area because the back side of this building doesn't really have anything here, so I decided to put the tokonoma item and also use a combination of the display stands as well, or I think that's what they're called, the wide display stands. It's been a minute since I've worked with these items, so I sometimes forget the names of them. But yes, it was a really good item to use as a tall wall. And then I noticed Flick was here. Why does he always choose like the tiniest random pieces? And the way he just like side-eyed me, I found quite disrespectful. Like he's the one who put himself up there. So I really couldn't decorate because he decided to stand on the tiniest cliff on the entire island. But I just had to work around him and I decided to extend all of the walls here. As I said, I do want this to be a secluded area, only the heroes are allowed in. The citizens don't really know that this is here in the city. So I decided to extend that whole cliffside with a bunch of wide display stands and servers and everything, but I didn't really have the patience to do that in the moment and order all of those items, so I decided to continue working and expanding on the headquarters. And this little section is something I'm also really proud of. Probably the most fun and interactive part of the headquarters. This is like the heroes' meeting area. So we have a meeting table in the very center, and I really wanted to create this really cool effect of having a big screen that they view news and other information, their game plan when heading out for missions. I wanted to create like a big TV screen. And of course, we don't really have that in the game. Of course, we have the projector, but that's not really the vibe that I was going for. So I was going to have to stack 4 different TVs in order to create the effect that I wanted. And because this is like a meeting room, I wanted to create an oval shape with the pathing and also just tie in a bunch of the other codes I used in the main center area of the headquarters. So I'm making a border with this blue tile code, and then I also don't really have any space in my codes for any other paths, so I just had to use my regular road code that I was using throughout the entire island, and honestly it worked out quite well. I feel like you can't tell that it's the same road code that I used. I just tried to make it very skinny, but I wanted to create that oval shape in the ground. So that's why I'm like using this code here. And pretty much where all the gray tiles are is where the tables are going to be, as well as all of the superheroes' chairs. So this is kind of what it ended up looking like. And I also threw in these square glowing tiles. I actually created this design just because I wanted some more futuristic looking codes. And it's just like very simple. It's just a regular square with a light blue highlight to make it look like it's glowing. But yeah, it just again makes everything feel illuminated. And here's where I start playing with the TV idea. I wanted to create like a little stand, and I just absolutely love the customization of this countertop item. It's just so superhero coded. Like the yellow, it's glowing. It's great. I was really happy that I was able to incorporate that in here. And then I also decided to use the wide display stands to act as like glass paneling in the room. I guess it could be like windows in a way, and you can peer into another room in the headquarters somewhere. I was really inspired by like the Avengers meeting scene in the movie. I just loved all the glass architecture of that room and the building. So that is why I decided to place those in there. And then I'm also just layering it in front of all the castle walls, again, to make it feel like you're still underground or in a cave. And we're throwing in some more frozen furniture as well. I think the pillars work very well as like borders for anything in this area. And again, it's illuminated. I was very strongly considering setting this island at nighttime because I have so many glowing elements on the island, but I did decide to set it during the day. I just think it looks the best that way, and you're able to see a lot more of the builds. But oh my goodness, it was pretty cool seeing all the glowing items at nighttime. And unfortunately I have reset the island already, so I can't really show you guys what it looks like at nighttime, but maybe if you stay on the island long enough you'll be able to see it at night. I really don't know. And then I wanted to create this really fun centerpiece just to emphasize the more futuristic vibe. And I did have to adjust my pathing a little bit because I kind of miscalculated how much space all of this layering was going to take up. And the little like paneling and server type items, well, they're not really servers, but like, the little panels ran right into the ring of the walkway. So I did have to fix that briefly, but it wasn't too much work, honestly. And then I just replaced everything back where it was originally, and it just looks so much better that way. Like, you can easily walk around the little circular area, and there is still plenty of space for the table. And then next, I wanted to frame off the wide display stands because I just didn't like the bottom. I thought it needed something extra and to really make this area feel like its own specific style, so I decided to reuse those short simple panels in the designs and layer it with the frozen partition. And then I wanted to fill in the window with something, so I used the cube light and also customized it with my little square design. Yeah, I just think like reusing the codes in different ways really makes things feel put together and intentional. So that's why I wanted to change things up. And then I also put in these little lights on the floor. I just thought that was so cute, and it really just made this feel, I don't know, it just elevated the build, truly. Just like the smallest little things always helps. So next up, we are doing some of the final little details in this room. I'm finishing off building the wall, and we are finally putting in our meeting table. I actually don't end up putting anything on the meeting table. I kind of liked it just plain. I feel like it just looks a little more professional that way, but I did decide to put that one glowing table. I think it's called the strategic table or something like that. It's part of like the sciencey set, I guess. And then I also put in these chairs. I chose these ones because they look super fun and kind of futuristic, as I mentioned multiple times in this video. But what's really fun is each chair is a different color because it matches each superhero's color that they're known for. Unfortunately, there isn't a yellow version, so I just had to do orange for Mira, and then the gray one in the very center is for me. It's my chair. I do end up wearing a different color in the dream address, but they didn't have my specific color, but you're just gonna have to wait for that video to see which color my super suit is officially. I am wearing this red one in this video, but I realized that 2 of my villagers have red suits already, so I wanted to do something a little bit different. But we are coming down to the wire here with this build. There are just a few more things to do. I wanted to add some more wide display stands up here, just to tie into the other walls down there, but I decided to use the black versions. 1, it did match Static's house exterior, and 2, I'm doing this little corner section of this cliffside. It was honestly so difficult for me to figure out how to end this cliff because the terraforming and landscaping right here is just very misaligned, but I think I made it work. I decided to make this little glass corner, and I'm going to put a phone there, and this is going to be like the team phone. If there's any trouble in the city, they're going to get a phone call from right there. I don't end up putting it there in this video because I didn't have the item at the time, but that is pretty much the whole point of that. And I thought it was really fun to put that one paw print design on the back, like they have to scan something. I don't really know, but it just looked good. And then I also put these railings here as well as those stage lights. I left the stage lights off because I just liked the muted colors of them, and it just looked really cool against the railings, so I really liked that part. And over here, I had to figure out what I was going to put in this big open space. And this is why I said it actually worked out that Petrie still needed a home on the island, because I was able to fill this space with her house. I was considering doing like a workout area for the villagers, but they already work out in the plaza, so I guess that's kind of another plus of having the headquarters surround the plaza, is it kind of looks like the villagers and the heroes are training for their battles, which honestly is just, it makes me so happy. But I was able to put Petrie's house here, and this is where I said I would give her her own little space for her workshop, and I'm just going to make this little hallway that leads up to her house. Again, you also don't really see this fully finished in today's video because I do move on to a whole nother section on the island. In fact, I work on the back section, which is going to be in the next video. So I don't really have an official way to close out today's video. So I actually had to go back and visit the dream address myself in order to show you the final looks of today's build and do a proper outro. So here is the final look around of the superhero headquarters. As I've mentioned multiple times, I'm very happy with this build. I think it is so fun. I don't think I've ever really been able to do something like this on any of my other islands. This is also just why I love trying out different island themes, is I get to do really cool builds and try different styles and use different items, and it honestly ends up being so much fun. So highly recommend you step out of your comfort zone if you are even thinking or considering a certain island theme but you're too nervous to try it. There's really no harm in trying, and you may find that it might be your new favorite theme or style to decorate in. But I'm just so proud of how this build turned out, and I hope you guys stick around for the next video where we'll be finishing off this island. I know this was kind of a longer video, so if you've made it to this point, thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't already, definitely consider subscribing. I mean, you made it to this point, you might as well. You may like more of my content, and feel free to check out the playlist that I will go ahead and link above of the previous Metropolis videos if you haven't seen those yet, and stay tuned for future videos on Metropolis. They will be coming very soon, and we'll also be doing the island tour. So yeah, thank you guys so much again, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!